How are we doing, everybody? Welcome into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we've got a quick episode heading your direction. We're dropping our Week 7 early fantasy football lineup advice here today with our start and sit wide receivers. This video in particular is going to be those sit wideouts, 5 of them that I'm looking to stay away from here. They might have had great games in Week 6 here, but I'm not trusting them as we move forward into this week's matchups due to game script, situational play, some combination of both, whatever the case might be. We're looking to go in other directions here. So 5 must-sit wide receivers. Let's not waste any more time, and let's dive in. Alrighty, as I have done in every episode this season for lineup advice, or at least I think we might have started this in Week 2, but we recap all of our picks here, so breaking down, being transparent with you guys, where we were right, where we were wrong, and, kind of, assessing how that happened. So we had a very good episode here in the sits from last week. You're going to see a lot of similar names and faces from our picks last week. We'll break down the ways the situations are different, of course, for this week, but my biggest hit of the week last week was assuredly T. Higgins, sitting him on the Cincinnati Bengals, taking on the Saints in New Orleans. Ankle issues, man. Do not overlook them. I learned my lesson from Amon-Ra St. Brown and from Gabriel Davis. If your key fantasy wide receiver has an ankle injury and does not log multiple full practices, that is a warning sign for me. We talked about in the take, if he logged 2 full practices back-to-back consecutive there, I would rescind my take and wipe him off the face of the earth there in terms of, that take ever existing. He did not. His last practice was limited. Sure enough, he comes out and catches 6 passes for 47 yards, but that's underwhelming efficiency, under 10 fantasy points. It wasn't good. He couldn't cut very well. You could see that. He's not the most sharp route runner in the world. He has very good routes per se, but he's not a stop on a dime player to begin with. So you kind of saw him just running balls and using his frame, running routes straight down the field and catching balls at the point of attack and just using his frame and wingspan to make those things happen. But again, wasn't efficient, didn't meet our threshold of 10 points in half PPR to get the job done there. Our other picks, DJ Moore, Drake London, Jeudy, all missed. Our only miss was Allen Lazard, who continues to score touchdowns at an absolutely absurd rate. 80% of his games here, he has scored a receiving touchdown. So, yeah, I don't know. I've got him as a sell-high candidate, also a must-start player. Spoiler alert for that video. Go check it out after you're done watching this one. But the guy keeps proving me wrong in different ways. But again, I look at the way he's getting about that production, and it just doesn't seem sustainable to me. But it ended up happening again last week, despite the fact that Sauce Gardner absolutely owned him for 95% of that game. So JuJu Smith-Schuster here at San Francisco this week had his best game of the season against the Buffalo Bills. There's hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There's optimism here, but I still am not willing to start him. He caught 100% of his passes, 5 of 5 receptions for a $113 and a touchdown. Lots of his damage, though, happened on one catch after the catch as well, after contact as well, if you will. 3 Bills defenders converge onto JuJu Smith-Schuster at the catch point. They all run into each other, hit the deck, and here goes clunky old JuJu out in space and in the open field, rumbling and bumbling, tumbling his way into the end zone for what was like a 10 or 11 fantasy point play there. So that was a big portion of his production. He finally got his job done after the catch here. That's been the key for him. He's not the best athlete in space anymore, is what I've noticed. Every time I talked about this in a different episode this week, but I feel like when he's out there, I always see this guy at the bottom of the screen or on the slot, and I'm like, who is that massive tight end? That's not Jeudy Fortson. Who is that guy? It's JuJu Smith-Schuster. He literally looks like an absolute tank out there, but he isn't very twitchy at this point, or at least not to my eye test. His routes aren't super finesse as well, and he really struggles against man coverage. So has to get soft zone coverage, has to get right after the catch. That's been the problem to this point. And unless San Francisco sits back and, lets Pat Mahomes just move the chains repeatedly, not looking to deploy him in matchups for this week. I see him as a deeper end flex play in some of our, again, deeper 12-plus man leagues. So not a top 24 wide receiver for me this week. Jeudy, similar issues here. What was pointed out from, if you guys don't follow Matt Harmon on Twitter, he is with Yahoo Fantasy, does some fun breakdowns with guys like Austin Eckler every week. He has a thing called reception perception where he basically charts wide receivers and their ability levels against certain coverages, what routes they run best and whatnot. So not affiliated with Matt or anything. He's just got good content. He's worth a follow on Twitter. He was talking about how he has charted some struggles from Jeudy against man coverage here. And this is a team, playing Sauce Gardner. Now, he's probably not going to draw a lot of attention from Sauce in this matchup. It's probably going to go Courtland Sutton's direction, so be wary of him there as well. But this is a Jets defense with their hair lit on fire right now. They are playing good football. They bullied the Green Bay Packers last week, like legitimate bullied them. Quincy and Quinnen Williams assaulted Aaron Rodgers all game long. Aaron Jones as well. We should put out an APB for Aaron Jones because, he was missing, and I think something horrible happened to him. So you've got a situation here where I hate this matchup. If I've ever hit rock bottom, I feel like week over week, I consistently hit rock bottom for this Denver Broncos offense, and things managed to just, my perception of them has been lowered to an even greater extent here after this week's game. So poor Jerry Jeudy, I keep throwing slander his way after being literally his biggest fan during draft season this year. But the matchup on paper is not great this week. The production from Russ has been atrocious. Him and the thumb Nathaniel Hackett have just demolished this offense's reputation and capability level. So not liking the opportunity here. I think that this is another game where we're going to see some underwhelming production unless him and Russ can connect on one of those deep touchdown passes, which they've had some success with this year, but it's not like it's happening every other week. So Terry McLaurin next up against the Green Bay Packers, taking on them at home here. The Packers defense, I said this in an earlier episode this week, they are good, not great, but they are good at stopping individual fantasy players from having success in matchups. So I had B-Rob as a sit as well this week if you want to go check out the must-sit running backs list. But essentially my take there is that you've got a backup quarterback here coming into the situation, into the fray here, Taylor Heineke, who's actually played the Packers before, but hasn't played all season. He's going to be a little bit rusty here. The secondary for the Packers defense is very respectable as well. So I think that bodes well for this team in terms of the Packers being able to shut down these players. We saw McLaurin be erratically inconsistent with Taylor Heineke as the starting QB last year as well. So maybe he goes off and has one of his better ceiling games of the year, but he could also have one of his worst floor performances as well, with Heineke being an undersized quarterback, just not someone you really want to rely and lean on in terms of delivering high-level passes to a big-time playmaker in McLaurin. I've got him as a flex-level lineup play for this week at best, and again, should expect streaky, erratic production from him with Heineke moving forward this season. And then last up here, actually, we've got two more names, the Drake London train here. Atlanta taking on Cincinnati. I apologize. I'm currently, this is very late on Monday night, I'm recording this episode. I'm trying to watch the opening night tip-off of NBA action, the Warriors and the LA Lakers playing tonight. So if you're wondering why I just stop for a second there and keep looking over, I'm watching that right now. But Drake London taking on the Bengals on the road here. This, for me, is less about the matchup. It's more about back-to-back weeks of just coming to reality with what this Atlanta offense is right now. Did you know that Atlanta is 3-0 when Marcus Mariota completes fewer than 13 passes? That is ridiculous. 13 passes is a tiny amount of passes for the NFL today. When he completes less than that, when they are a run-first team, they are 3-0, undefeated. Great. Their other three losses come when he throws the ball more than three times. Completes more than 13 passes. He's throwing the ball more than that, but of course, his actual completion amount. That's crazy. So you're not getting enough opportunities here. There isn't high enough levels of volume to produce viable numbers. It feels like from a fantasy perspective, London has regressed to start out this season, from the start of this season until the current standings that we're at right now. And overall, I just don't feel an overwhelming amount of trust for what Mariota is delivering. I trust him as a fantasy quarterback as a really high-end number 2 option, but not the dependent players who need his play to elevate their production. So stuff to think about there. Another really interesting note. They are 6-point underdogs this week, so game script looks really nice here. But Atlanta today, through a third of the NFL season, is 6-0 against the spread, meaning they have not lost. They have covered every single game. This is a overwhelmingly underdog team here. They're a feisty bunch. Arthur Smith's crew plays good offense. They might not put up the biggest passing stats, as I alluded to multiple times earlier, but this team hangs around in games and puts up really good numbers. I do want to say this before I talk through DJ Moore here, because I don't want to forget about it, because I think it's something really interesting to put into perspective for this week. This week's games, I feel, is the weakest wide receiver group of any week we've had so far this season. So it's week 7 here. I think this is the worst matchup combination mixed with the depth that we have at receiver to this point in the year. And I also wrote on a notepad that in this matchup, with these week's matchups, I would start Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers over all 5 names in this video. Romeo freaking Doubs, a rookie, streaky producer against a underwhelming Commander secondary. I would start him 10 times out of 10 over all of these players. So a key note for me there, and getting into DJ Moore here. So I told myself I would not talk about this again this season, but I have to. We've continually had changes in this Carolina situation that I think warrant questions from you guys, and I don't want to be the guy that sits back here and, just like Allen Robinson, I'll have to talk about him inevitably as well. The fact that he produced last week, it's just I owe it to you guys. I don't want to talk about these players per se because they're frustrating for me, and they frankly suck for fantasy football right now. Now again, Allen did produce last week, but there was a development in this situation, so I do feel the need to talk about it here and tell you why I'm still sitting DJ Moore at home against Tampa Bay this week, despite being 11-point underdogs at home. If this was on the road, it'd probably be 14 points. So a 2-touchdown underdog tying the highest line of the season for Pittsburgh Bills just a couple of weeks ago. DJ Moore here had a situation where Robbie Anderson was traded out of the lineup here for Carolina, which theoretically opens up some more targets. The reason I'm not biting on this is it's a 15% target share for Robbie Anderson. 4.5 targets per game is not enough to assume that all of that's going to fall into the lap of DJ Moore and that he's going to become a player that instantly produces at a higher level than what we've seen in the past. So I'm not going to put my eggs in the PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield basket when we've seen how atrocious this team has been so far this year. Offensively, they've been inept in terms of moving the ball downfield, obsolete in terms of producing for these wide receivers. It's been a mess. Last week, he caught 3 of his 7 passes for a below 50% catch rate for 7 freaking yards on 3 catches. 2 of them were smoke routes. It's not getting it done at the end of the day. So staying away from him still in this week's matchups. Like I said, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. I would start Romeo Doubs over all 5 of these players this week, and that's why they made the cut here. All these guys are 24 to 30 ranked receivers overall this week, so in 12-team formats, heck, even 10-team formats with deep benches and multiple flex spots, you're going to see these guys in lineups, but it's not the ideal situation in reality that you want to have unfold for teams here, because again, this is the weakest week I feel so far to this season at the wide receiver position. So, as always, if you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure to click that subscribe button and turn the bell on so you're never late for a new piece of content. I'm posting videos here every day. And remember, go check out some of our other platforms in the description of today's episode. Underdog Fantasy, code SFS, get you access to me setting your lineups for you every week, as well as the community Discord server, or that's where that function's available, but you get DM access on there. We've got other cool stuff, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, social media accounts. Go check it all out in our Week 7 playlist for this week as well. And I'll see you there. Peace out.